we want to make sure that this is a community that is not just good for some people, but good for everyone who lives here. And so much of economic development historically is measured on jobs and capital investment, looking at average wages, but there's definitely some disparities that come into play in our market as well as in many other markets across the US and across the world. And so we're looking to see how we can lift everyone up.
Welcome to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1. I'm your host, Will Melton, and today we are at Greater Richmond Partnership with Jennifer Wakefield and Kyriakos Sharikis to talk about medicine in Richmond, medicine manufacturing in Richmond. There's a lot of exciting things going on. But before we dive into the program, if you have not yet visited America's Healthiest City, please check that website out to see our ideas board, see the ideas that have been submitted by others in the community, leave comments, and find out what it takes to become an ambassador to our program. We are working on a 10-year community partnership to make Richmond, the entire region, the healthiest in America by 2033, and it takes all of us to move us in that direction. So without further ado, Jennifer and Kyriakos, welcome to the show. Thank you. Thank you for having us here at GRP.
Thanks for being here.
I'm excited for the conversation. We start out the same way with everybody, and that is, and I know this about both of you, but I'll let you share for our audience. Are you new to Richmond, or did you move here? Are you from Richmond, or did you move here at some point? We'll start with you.
Okay. I'm an Air Force brat, originally from Florida, moved around a little bit, suffered through Honolulu and Louisiana, and then moved back. Was recruited here in 2017 after living in Orlando for 15 years. Have been here for 7 years now and absolutely love it.
Great.
I'm a Virginia native. I've been here all my life. VCU actually brought me down to the Richmond area. Been here 15 plus years. I got 10 plus years in web development, digital marketing background. Had a little work with CoStar and saw a great opportunity here with Greater Richmond.
Great. So for our listeners' sake, I want them to understand the powerhouse that you are, Jennifer, as a internationally recognized person. This is my research assistant, ChatGPT, told me this, so I know it's true. And but I also know that you guys have accomplished some amazing things here in Richmond. But I want to go back a little bit because you accomplished some great things down in Orlando before you came here. Tell us a little bit about your experience there, and how did that lead you to Richmond, and what was your experience there? How did that contribute to what you've been able to do since you've been here?
Sure. My background is all marketing, so I have worked in marketing for the last 24 years. Started off working for a utility, worked for an agency, worked for a MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization, so similar to Plan RVA here, and then found my way into economic development in 2006 in the Orlando market. One of the first things that I did when I started working in economic development was work to make sure that we had approvals for a brand new community arts venue, a performing arts center, and a brand new arena for the Orlando Magic. And at the same time, we were recruiting a life sciences company. So it was the Burnham Institute for Medical Research, which became the Sanford Burnham Medical Research Institute. So been involved with life sciences companies for many, many years. Did that for 15 years, started a very strong branding campaign in partnership with Disney and other tourism executives in the Orlando market to differentiate Orlando as a business location. What was happening was that employers in the Orlando market were having problems trying to recruit the right type of talent to the market, because if they could get an executive who would come here to the market to want to work in tourism, their spouse would think there wasn't necessarily any other industries that were there. And so we partnered very closely with our tourism partners and others to tell the world that there was more to that market. And that attracted the interest of a former CEO from the Greater Richmond Partnership who called me to talk about a campaign that we had created. And at the end of the call, he said, "I want you to come work for me." So,
that easy, huh?
That was it.
Now, Kyriakos, I know that your claim to fame isn't being a boxer, but I do understand that you're into boxing. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And
It's more for mental release and just keeping myself fit. It's a great sport. I like focusing on kickboxing actually too. Would never get in the ring. I know I'm not conditioned for that, but it's just a great overall way to keep yourself mentally in tune with life and stay healthy.
And CoStar is no small entity here in Richmond, having come from there, it seems like a great transition. You're in this new space of pharmaceutical manufacturing. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience prior to this and how you feel like that ramped you up for what you're doing today?
So, I mean, when working at CoStar too, I was in Boston, so I'd work with property owners and companies in the life sciences field. Before that, I also had worked in the healthcare side in physical rehabilitation with Sheltering Arms Institute, helped get them up from bottom up, working with their website and attracting the right audience to get more inpatient patients into their hospital.
So Richmond is becoming a powerhouse, attracting lots of employers here, and you guys have done a great job to create this life sciences hub. Let's talk a little bit about the Build Back Better grant that we received. Is that like $52.9 million? Is that right? Mm-hmm. What did that fund, and what have we seen here in the region since that funding has come? I know that there are a number of entities that are new here, nonprofit, for-profit. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, the background is that we have this kind of fun cube that talks about key messages. And in here, it talks about some of the industry clusters that we're really strongest at, and life sciences is definitely one, but it's a very nascent industry. There has been a long history of great healthcare in this market, and a lot of innovation that has come out. A lot of it is stemmed around VCU. And so Frank Gupton is a genius that runs the Medicines for All Institute at VCU. And he recruited Eric Edwards to lead a company called Flow. And so a lot of these conversations started 4 years ago in the midst of the pandemic about what could happen. But prior to that, when I first located here in 2017, Frank Gupton had a Medicines for All conference, which was essentially a chemistry class it was basically a college chemistry class. And I sat in that conference and I thought, oh my gosh, like this man is a genius. And I understand none of this because I took high school chemistry but did not take it in college, but understood that what he was trying to do with moving toward a continuous flow of medicine, of production for that, was being recognized by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He was receiving a lot of funding to try and reinvent how medicines were made. And so that was the precursor for Flow and everything that was going on with Medicines for All Institute. So it started with a lot of different partners back around 2020. Really led by Activation Capital and Chandra Brignan, who leads that entity in the Virginia BioNTech Park. And then the Alliance for Building Better Medicine was the name that we kind of created as a result of this effort that stemmed from 2020, but really kind of all centered around VCU and what was happening there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, manufacturing resurgence is certainly not just a Richmond story, it's an American story. We all saw what happened with supply chain shortages during the pandemic, and medicine was certainly one of those areas. Can you tell us a little bit about what we are enabling on the health front by being able to make these medicines here locally in the United States? What problems are we solving with that?
That's kind of the premise of why the Alliance was formed. So 70% of those APIs, final dosage formulas, are being created in China and India, trying to bring it back. And we feel we have a great ecosystem already in place. But the funding that you mentioned, the 52 million, that's just the start of it. Think of this as we're in our infancy stage. We've amassed, we're nearing about $1 billion in investment to improve infrastructure, workforce development. We got the scale up facility as well. I can get a little in depth in that a little later on, but also the work that we're doing to help build a supply chain around that, their needs. So wastewater removal, cold storage, fill and finish, sterile injectables, a lot of great targets here. Once we start filling the gaps, which we are doing currently, you're going to see more and more interest. And the government has eyes on us. So we're the only region that has the Tech Hub designation, which you mentioned, for advanced pharmaceutical manufacturing, the NSF Engines grant, Type 2, and the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. So we're in a good position, a lot of eyes are on us, and we feel like we have a really good chance here.
You're listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1, part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. Today we are on site at Greater Richmond Partnership with Jennifer Wakefield and Kyriakos Rikas, and we're talking about life sciences and the growing industry that we see here in Richmond. I want to talk a little bit about impact beyond national security and health, and talk about what is happening for the region as a result of this investment, these investments. And I want to expand that a little bit to include Petersburg, because I know that Petersburg has long struggled behind Richmond, and this is really doing amazing things for them down there too. How does this bring our two communities together, and what sort of outcomes do we think we're going to see as a result of these continued investments?
Well, it's really, Richmond, Petersburg, it's all one MSA. So it is the Richmond MSA. And so, yeah, very excited that, there's an opportunity to help upward mobility in the Richmond and Petersburg. And when I say Richmond, I'm not just referring to the city, I'm referring to the city of Richmond and the counties of Chesterfield, Hanover, and Henrico as well. And so all of those entities are involved. And then in Petersburg, it's not just the city of Petersburg, but many of the surrounding communities as well in the Tri-Cities area.
So this is jobs. One thing, it's high-skilled, high-paying jobs as well. What's the impact beyond that? So, our listeners may not realize that when these sorts of investments happen, it's not just going to be pharmaceutical jobs or manufacturing jobs, but there's a lot of other things that will come up around those places. Kind of how does that, investment create other investments, and what can we see from a jobs perspective?
Well, and it's also hard to put jobs into one category, right? So not every employer is looking to hire someone with a 4-year or an advanced degree, right? In these types of positions, there are definitely 4-year degree programs and advanced degrees, but also 2-year programs, and then just a technical certificate or some kind of minimal level of training. And ditto for manufacturing as well, right? So manufacturing has become highly automated. So there are people who are very highly skilled with advanced degrees, but there are technicians as well. So these are all kinds of opportunities. For me, that's really where magic happens, is providing opportunities to people, whatever area that they're in or whatever skill level that they have or whatever their background may be, is being able to provide that. But in addition to that, in economic development, we have to talk about jobs and capital investment, right? And capital investment is the money that's poured into the building, the land, the equipment that goes into that. And that helps fund the localities, which then helps provide all the services that are needed into a community. But those are direct jobs that are with the individual companies that may locate here. There are also a number of indirect jobs, i.e. construction jobs, and then induced jobs as well.
Kyriako, what do you think, like for an average person who maybe isn't in the world of economic development, what do you think that the takeaway is? What's something to be excited about these investments, just for the everyday person?
I really like the fact, just one component of the Build Back Better grant, just we're growing the talent out here through some of this funding. So what she was talking about a little earlier, building these programs at the community college level. So some of the programs came out. We have a biotechnology technician track that's aimed to come out through Reynolds Community College. But Brightpoint's actually already implemented the advanced pharma manufacturing career paths. We have 9 cohorts now, we have 40 graduates, a little over 100 students in that program, but we're growing the talent to fit these needs that have already been addressed. So it's kind of unprecedented. No other regions are building this workforce when we're still trying to grow the jobs out here. So, but we already have success stories. Some of these students are actually getting hired on to Civica and Flows. A lot of upward movement.
So on the business front, we can think about that in a couple different categories. We have businesses that are already here; they're going to see a benefit. But there's also the outside businesses that are out there shopping for markets to locate in. What does this story and this development mean for our efforts at attracting other businesses? What sort of things are you out there telling folks about why Richmond's the place to be?
So anytime we get any kind of a designation from the federal government, as Kyriako has mentioned, both Build Back Better, the NSF, and then Tech Hub Phase 1, that causes companies to sit up and take notice, right? Even if there's any kind of ranking, but an award from the federal government, just one, let alone 3, right? And of the communities that have received Build Back Better and Tech Hubs, there's only 13. But as Kyriako mentioned, we're the only one that is doing the advanced pharmaceutical manufacturing effort. So it's causing companies to start to realize what's happening in Richmond, Virginia, and should I pay attention to what is occurring there, and should I want to locate my business there? The reason for that is some of the strongest reasons for why companies would want to locate are actually on the wall behind us. And so this is actually, some of our key messages that are there. But one of it is our location, right? We are the state capital, and we are very closely connected to our nation's capital, which means federal labs and state labs. It also means legislation, right? And legislators. And being proximate to all of them is very, very important, especially in the life sciences industry.
Yeah, I feel like it might be too dense to get into the Dillon Rule state stuff for the show, but I can see how in a state where the legislature has to say yes to everything that localities wants to do, that's very important. Kyriako, so to the side of businesses that are here, you were part of a story there with CoStar. I mean, they're building what's going to be the second tallest building in Richmond. It's probably technically the tallest if you take spires down. But what do you know more about what motivated CoStar to make that huge investment here?
I mean, she was more involved with that project.
Yeah.
It's one project we're involved with, actually.
Yeah. So GRP actually helped to recruit CoStar to the Richmond market back in 2016.
Okay.
And so we were competing against North Carolina, and Andy Florence has been very open about this. We were not the number one choice. They actually chose to locate in Charlotte, North Carolina. But the year was 2016. The North Carolina legislature decided to pass what's known as HB2, which was a discriminatory bathroom bill, which discriminated against LGBTQIA individuals. CoStar said, ooh, hold that thought. This really doesn't align with our values as a company, and we want to go to a place that is open and accepting to everyone. And so they came to Richmond, Virginia, which was their number 2 choice, and we're very grateful that they did.
That's a fascinating story. I wasn't aware of that, and I think that when people talk about DE&I, and I know that for some it can be a sensitive subject, that's real economic power to be inclusive and what that does for a region. I think that's an impressive story.
Absolutely. And I mean, their most recent investment is an additional 2,000 jobs, which means that at completion they'll have at least 3,000 jobs and $500 million in investment.
And all of us here in Richmond are going to have a new playground and a place to go hang out and enjoy food and all those wonderful things. Yeah. So I want to talk some about health in the community, and not necessarily individual health, but kind of getting into inclusion as one factor of the social determinants of health. What can you speak to about the outcomes that we will see as we move down this road, as people continue to invest and move their businesses here? What could we see from a community health perspective that is positive development?
Well, one thing to note, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but we've partnered with Chamber RVA and the Brookings Institute and the Center for Economic Inclusion. And so we're working on creating a mobility index, essentially. And we want to make sure that this is a community that is not just good for some people, but good for everyone who lives here. And so much of economic development historically is measured on jobs and capital investment, looking at average wages, but there's definitely some disparities that come into play in our market as well as in many other markets across the US and across the world. And so we're looking to see how we can lift everyone up.
And Kyriakou, specifically to life sciences, how do you see these investments paying off from a community health perspective? Do you think that we will see, just in this community, better health as a result of the medicines that we're making, or kind of how does that specifically impact community health?
Well, I wouldn't even say just our community. We're aiming to improve just the quality of medicines, lower cost medicines to individuals across the entire world. The processes are greener processes. So environmentally, it's more friendly. You have less waste byproducts from the processes they're pulling out. Like Jen had mentioned, it's the continuous flow processes. They can also improve upon these batch manufacturing processes. Not only for these essential medicines, but there's room to partner with some of their commercialized patented medicines. So some of these larger market share manufacturers have opportunity to collaborate as well.
Well, I think that the more I get into this subject and the more I think about the tangents of it, there's a lot of exciting things going on. Maybe not to deviate too much, but as we look into the next year or 2 or 3, what are some things that the two of you are excited about, in life sciences, outside of life sciences, that we can expect to enjoy here?
We've just really been riding a wave of momentum with a lot of great job opportunities throughout the region in life sciences, but beyond that as well, looking into especially manufacturing and food and beverage, data centers, and much, much more. And so we are actually undergoing a strategic planning process right now that will take us through 2030. So we're very excited about that.
And I'm excited about that tech hub. So that's like a 10-year plan. So I have to reference, but some of the things that we're trying to improve upon is the digital readiness. So incorporating AI aspects into how they create these drugs, further improvement of the continuous flow processes. It's going to build more opportunity here. We're going to build global awareness. It's going to take time. So right now, Virginia, Richmond, the greater Richmond area isn't really seen as like a life science hub, but we're going to get there. It's going to take time, just like it took RTP 60 plus years. We're at the very beginning. It's 4 years in. So
For the sake of our listeners, can you say what RTP is?
A Research Triangle Park in the, I don't know if I should reference it, but it's...
Or as I like to say, Raleigh.
Okay. Yeah, well, we can edit that out. No, I'm just kidding. So I want to take a few minutes to talk about Richmond specifically and maybe outside of the world of economic development. And that's to talk about the ideas that we can inject into our ideas board for our community. And I ask everybody, is it going to be something small that people can do, or is there some big opportunity that we might think about to lean into? So I'll ask each of you if you have an idea that you can share for our ideas board.
Well, we do have, what we'd like to do is have people help share the key messages that are in our region, which will help attract other people to this market. And so if you scan this, and we can send you a link, but it takes you directly to what are the key messages, why would people want to locate a business here, and why would people want to move here? That will help share those messages with you. But, just a few of them, there are a lot of Fortune 1000 companies that are headquartered here. In fact, there's 11, which is pretty significant for the market that is our size of 1.3 million people. We talked a little bit about diversity. We are way more diverse than the U.S. average, 41% non-white versus the U.S. average of 32%. Our talent is also very highly educated. That's very attractive to employers. And talent pipeline, within 150 miles of the Richmond market, there's 1.7 million higher education students. And so what we would love is if people would share the key messages of why this is a really strong market, because that will in turn help attract more companies to locate here.
For those watching this show, you can screenshot your phone for the QR code and save it to your photos and tap on it in your photos to get directly to the link. Most people don't know that. I didn't know that until a couple of weeks ago, but we'll put that up on the screen. And any ideas that you want to inject into our ideas board? I
would defer to Jen's. I didn't have any ideas set up.
Well, I'll give you one because I think boxing is a really great, exercise that we can all do a little bit better for our bodies, right?
Well, there's a common misconception. You don't have to fight to box, too. It's I guess use it more as meditative exercise. So it's an art form.
Where's a place that folks in the community can go to get that exercise?
CSC Boxing. It's not too far. Great talent up there.
And a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up. But what is the thing that, if there's one item that somebody needed to remember from this conversation or the things that you're out there doing to attract folks, what's like one big thing that, just an idea that people should carry in their back pocket about Richmond? I know you've got 11,
We have a lot, but I would say pride in the community and sharing that and not being afraid of wanting other people to locate into this market. I think sometimes Richmonders know that this is such a great market and they don't want people in on our little secret, right? Or they're afraid that we'll grow too fast. We're not going to grow too fast. Yes, we're growing faster than the rest of the state, but that's not hard because the state is not growing, right? We grow at 2% annually. We could handle 3%, right? 4% even, right? Not 20% like Nashville, right? Like we don't want that type of growth. We want very smart planned growth, but we can accommodate additional growth into this market. And so what we want is people to share like all the reasons why this is a great market to live, work, and play.
So I think on that front, there's a data point that I captured from you yesterday that I found fascinating. A lot of people who live here have kind of talked about the cost of housing going up, and I think that there's a misconception that the growth that we see in this market is the result of that, but it's really nationwide. Can you speak to our position relative to the rest of the nation and kind of help to dispel that notion that might be percolating?
And as a resident, we look at the cost of housing. I myself bought a house when I first moved here and said, okay, I'll live in this house for a few years, right? And then we'll look to see if there's another house. We've been waiting to see, prices, is interest rates coming down, are prices going to stabilize a little bit? And it's much more significant than, of course, when I located here 7 years ago, but that's the case everywhere, right? When we look at and we pull all the official data sources and compare our MSA versus other MSAs across the country, we are a bargain, right? The average cost of houses, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of, let's say, $450 or $475-ish. Ours is almost $100,000 less than that, right? And that's the average cost of the house for the entire MSA, but that's how companies and corporate executives, that's how corporate executives and site consultants measure communities against one another, is the official sources for average cost of housing. When companies are looking at our market versus our peer markets or at the US average, we still are a very, very attractive market. in all different types of housing, because we do drive our clients around and show them here are housing opportunities for executive homes, for your mid-level employees, and for your entry-level employees. So they do get to see those opportunities, and they still are very interested in this market.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Kyriako, one big idea that people should carry around in their back pocket about the community?
It's what kept me here. It's the quality of life. I would lean on the affordability too. You got great talent out here too. So a lot of room for collaboration, to cross check your ideas with other folks in the area. So.
And one more question that we have to ask, and that is to fuel our show for the future. Who's some folks out there, maybe one or two people that is making a difference that we should invite onto the show?
I mean, I would say, since we're on this topic, if you haven't already had Chandra Brigman on from Activation Capital, she would be fantastic.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. And lastly, where can folks find out more about Greater Richmond Partnership and the two of you?
Sure, by visiting grpva.com.
And you guys are both on LinkedIn, I'm sure. And,
We are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day for this interview. This was wonderful. I learned a lot, and I hope our listeners did as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1. You can catch this show each week on the network or on espnrichmond.com at 6 a.m. on Thursdays. If you don't follow us on social media, please hop over to Instagram at America's Healthiest City and at America's Healthiest City on YouTube to catch full episodes of this show after they air. We'll catch you next time.